Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Nelson. And for many of you, you've heard the stories that I tell and the videos that I make. And I really do appreciate all of the comments and how much you like them. For those of you that know my books, I write under the pen name of Michael Dees. And so these videos and quite a few others are available on YouTube under Michael Dees, Deeze. And there's a long story for that, by the way. My name is Michael D. Nelson. And when I was first starting to write books, my mother was pretty proud of it. And so she would tell everybody, well, Michael D's got a book coming out. Michael D's has this going on, and Michael D has got a book that's going to be published. She was very excited about it. Well, just before the first one came out, bless me, Father, she passed away. And so I changed the name of the author to Michael Dees because these are Michael Dees books. So Michael Dees books are what my mother called them. And so that's how I kind of honor her memory. My mother was pretty intrepid herself, and she was a farm girl that moved to Chicago with my father when she was very young, right after World War II. And we lived in a small one-room apartment that had no window. I was born at Ingleside Hospital in downtown Chicago, and we lived in Maplewood Commons, which was a pretty rough neighborhood. And so my parents raised us to be intrepid as well. And when we got the chance, we moved back to Wisconsin or whatever, and I was more than happy to do it. But I was not prepared for some of the things that I would get when I went out there. So I practiced in a large Amish community, about 375 families, and with lots of kids. And it was not uncommon to get a phone call in the middle of the night, during the day when we least expected it, and almost always when the weather was bad. So I was a classically trained chiropractor, and then after practicing for about 10 years, I went back and continued my education and did internships to learn other things. I'm proud to say that I've delivered 32 babies. 3 of them on my pickup truck seat, though, which is really hard on the upholstery, if you want to know. So when an Amish person calls you to come out, they've had to think about it for a while. And then they've had to decide what to do, and then they have to find a phone, which means they have to go out to the nearest neighbor who has one so that they can call. So often by the time they got around to calling me or someone like me to come out, the time is short. Well, I got called one night. It was early spring like it is today, and cold like it is today. But it was a bit colder because it was spitting sleet and it was icing the roads, and it was a foul, foul evening. And they called and said that one of their boys had fallen down the hay chute. And he was not conscious, which is always a bad thing. Concussion is the least of the bad things that can happen. And so it was imperative that I go out or somebody go out. Now, the ambulance was spotty in that area. It was an underserved area. And very often I would go out, not because there was something that I could do, because I was going out because I was probably going to be the ambulance. And that was exactly what the case was on this particular evening. It was well past dark when I got there. And sure enough, the young man was barely conscious. We could rouse him, but he was not very responsive, and he had a pretty good sized dent in the back of his head. Now, what we suspect in a situation like that is that he has a skull fracture, what we call a compressed skull fracture, which needs to be relieved. I mean, the pressure needs to be taken off the brain or the brain will swell, and it can be fatal in a situation like that. However, in this case, it was quite a ways out of the town where I lived, and so the hospitals, the ones that would have helped this fellow, were a good 50 or 60 miles away. And I had a choice. They were in two different directions. One was 50 miles south through the hills, and the other one was 60 miles west, and it was a long drive to the interstate to get there. Either way, we were going to have to hurry. So I decided on the 50 miles south through the hills and hoped for the best, make for the Hillsborough Hospital. And so we packed the young man and his father in the front seat of my pickup truck. It's all we had. I had already put the chains on the truck, and the truck was in four-wheel drive to make the run. But the roads were icy. And when I say we were going through the hills, we were going through hills like this. So the best the truck could do was spin all four wheels and crab walk up the hill, just up the hill, and then hope we didn't pick up too much speed going down. So top speed going up the hills, maybe 15, 20 miles an hour. Top speed going down the hills, probably less than that, because there was always a curve at the bottom. Now, it had continued to rain and spit, and it was getting worse. I had to stop and clean the windshield wipers over and over and over again. And we were moving along, and we were getting there, but we were a ways. And this young fellow who was not responsive was just leaning over against his father. Nothing going on there. We were going down the road, and it was dark, and the headlights were getting iced up and everything else. The vision was terrible. And right out of the blue, just like that, this young fella sits up in the seat and goes, "Deer!" And sure enough, two deer ran across the road right in front of us. And if I hadn't slammed on the brakes, we would have wrecked the truck and all of us been in the ditch. And the boy just slouched back in the seat and didn't say another word. And to this day, I've never seen anything like that in my life. How he saw it, how he knew it was there, or anything else. And it gives some of the meaning to divine intervention on occasion. Well, following that, we did get him to the hospital, and he did have a skull fracture. And it was just my luck that on that night, one of my good friends, who was just about the best general surgeon that I've ever worked with, was on call at the hospital. And in no time at all, I saved that boy's life. And I got to feel like he returned the favor when he spotted that deer for me. Now, you have a good time and enjoy. And some of these are stories that didn't make it into the books. And I hope you like them. If you like them, I'll keep doing them. Thanks.